shot.
The next one coming in, this one is a Type 59 vehicle, which we always have fun explaining. The Russians developed a series of tanks, they call them T-tanks. They developed just after the Second World War a tank called the T-74. And at the end of the 50s, they passed a number of those tanks and the drawings onto the Chinese government. Of course, post-communist countries, at that time they were both very friendly, and the Chinese copied the Russian T-54 tank, and they called their tanks Type tank. So this is a Type 59 tank, which is therefore basically a Chinese copy of a Russian T-54 tank. I hope you're paying attention out there, because there is going to be a test later, so make note. So Type 59, and this particular tank is even slightly weirder. It's got a British gun on it. What happened was that so many of these vehicles were sold around the world. The British Army, or the Royal Ordnance, actually offered the L7-105 gun to countries that would like to change the gun that was originally fitted, a 100mm gun, to the 105mm L7 gun. We've seen that gun already on a number of vehicles. We'll see it in a moment on our Centurion tanks, and it was offered. It wasn't taken up as a sales project. It didn't really work that well in terms of countries not particularly buying it, because they had no call to particularly. But this is the testbed vehicle that was used by Royal Ordnance, taken to some of the defence shows, and when they finished with it some years ago, it was gifted to the Tank Museum.
The Type 59 is powered by a V12 diesel. It's unusual in that it's crossways mounted at the back, but that was exactly as it was in the Russian tanks that the Type 59 was copied from. The other feature, of course, is that it has 40 flat large roof. The diesel with springs on the outside. All that it's taken care of by twisting rods underneath the floor. That's what you've got on the Type 59. It's got the turret's always referred to as an inverted frying pan turret, and it looks very similar to the turrets you'll see on the Type T-54, T-55, even the T-72. They went along those lines for years, and that's just typical of their tanks.
One of the big issues in the Cold War was in Western countries we used to always like to think our tanks were much more technically sophisticated than the Russian tanks, and certainly on a one-to-one basis, on the whole, the Western tanks certainly were. If you're playing top trumps, you want certainly to get a NATO tank rather than a Russian tank. But of course, those Russian tanks were designed with mass in mind, huge numbers, and they were designed very specifically for the Russian war plan. And that is to think of a tank not so much as a vehicle that's going to go on for a long time. The Russians look at a tank like a hand grenade. If you need 5 hand grenades to clear a house, the Russians would have given their frontline forces 5 of them, off they go, and there will be more to replace them. And this is a tank coming on now that the Russians built, designed in the 60s. This is the T-72 tank, and this, one might argue, is probably the most numerous tank in service around the world at the moment, and it has seen a lot of combat action, and it is a superbly effective, simple design.
Based armour on the sides, which opens out to deflect incoming shot. But these powered by a same sort of diesel engine. The Russians actually started out with a tank called the T-64, which featured a sort of horizontally opposed diesel engine, which was rather based on what we were doing with Chieftain. It was nearly as awful as Chieftain as well. The T-64 never left the red arm. The T-72, which has got more of the traditional engine and gearbox, was used by a number of countries, as David said, all around the world, and it still is. It's got torsion bar suspension again. It's got an auto loader in the base of the turret, so that you can lower the whole tank. You don't need the loaders. The only man in most tanks who works standing up. It's about the only way he can do it. But by doing away with the loader, you do away with the extra height of the standing man. The drawback is that the loading device is like a carousel arrangement at the base of the turret, and if that is hit, the tank goes up like a bomb. Again, it doesn't matter to the Russians, they've got as many. And it could really blow up loaded turret.
There's a many variants of the T-72, and the Russian army made sure they kept the very best versions for their own forces, different standards of armour protection, different weapon systems and different types of ammunition were issued depending on the country. And we've actually found that you can buy a working T-72. We found them for sale as little as 30,000 euros, which is peanuts in military terms. So it's a tank that was made in such numbers, and with the end of the Cold War they've been passed on, they've been sold around the world, so these will be being seen in combat for decades to come. And of course, with so many armoured vehicles now, you can buy upgrade packages, so what was originally a fairly basic vehicle can have new armour, new sighting systems, new weapons added to it, so it becomes a very potent system.